We're live. Welcome back to another episode of this chill film discussion.
Yes.
Today we are, let's see, what film? Oh yeah, we're discussing a film called the Joy Luck Club. And yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it, of course, this is going to have spoilers. And if you're tuning in just now, I hope you're having a great day, great Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Joy Luck Club. Just a little bit of I guess, background synopsis premise for this film. It's a 1993 American drama film, and I think it basically covers the relationships between like Chinese American daughters and their Chinese immigrant mothers.
Yeah.
Like there's just a series of those relationships. It's kind of
Snippets of
like
those
a
stories.
snippets. It's like four of those relationships, and it kind of covers each of those, all four of them
Yeah.
separately. So it's sort of like a. This film is basically like four short stories combined into one, um,
Pretty
and with
much.
an overlaying overall plot. Like, but the overall plot's like fairly simple, or straightforward.
Yeah. It's based
Yeah.
off the
Let's
book.
see. It's based off a book.
Yeah, it's based off the
Ah,
book,
yes,
which is a big, hit, or a very famous book by Amy Tan, who also
yes. Okay,
co-wrote the screenplay here.
okay,
Uh,
cool. I think this is actually one of the first films that features like basically like an ensemble cast or like a full cast of like Asian people, or
right.
one of the first
One of the first,
uh,
I think, yeah, or at least ones that is
in
more
in
for Asian
Hollywood,
Americans, right? Um,
right? Asian Americans, yeah. At least in like Hollywood,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this film, I think, was culturally significant, for sure in terms of like it sort of detailed relationships between four Asian American daughters and their Chinese immigrant mothers. Um, and there was like for me at least there was really relatability because like my parents are immigrants and I'm sort of like Chinese American myself.
Yeah.
So growing up in that sort of household was, yeah, can relate. Um, but from a storytelling perspective, because it goes through four short stories because of the four daughters and their mothers, and details of their relationship, and the circumstances with which their relationship unfold. Um, Parts of it were confusing, as in like, and parts of it were not necessarily. Well, some of the characters I wasn't a huge fan of. Let's say that, in terms of like their behavior or their action, and there are other parts where like there was definitely like thematic significance to that story, but then because of how it was told or like the climax of it, those parts of it were like felt were very over dramatized, and it took me out of the moment, and I was confused with which why the characters um, were behaving in certain ways. So yeah, I enjoyed like some of the thematic significance and the cultural significance of this film, but from some of the storytelling perspective, I think it was suffered from the stories themselves not being fleshed out enough because maybe there was enough time since there were like four of them,
hmm
or just over dramatization of certain parts of the, the story, and that sort of took me out of the moment.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that's sort of like my assessment of this film. Yeah,
uh, yeah, I think yeah, probably kind of very similar. I mean, yeah, the cultural significance, right, with the first Asian American cast, which definitely was interesting to see, right, just to how it was portrayed. Right, it's all Asian American females too, right, which
yeah,
having
yeah,
these stories,
true.
right, and I think for me, while it's nice to see someone see my Asian American in media, right. Um, Not as relatable to me. I can see like why to a lot of people it's relatable with strict Asian parents, right? My parents not as strict, yeah, but still just still encouraged me to do well academically and and personally as well. But just seeing these stories is just very interesting. I think taken individually, these stories were interesting, right? Because each of the mothers go through their own conflict, which is has their own story and themes as well. But tying them together for one big movie, I think it just kind of hurts because now I'm trying to sometimes stitch together, right, the different themes of the mother and daughters, and sometimes I don't think it would the themes like match one to one really. It kind of there's like this you have to kind of like piece it together in terms of you have to kind of interpret, right? Like, oh, this theme kind of matches up. I feel like, and they also try to be overt about it, right? They have narration in the film, and I think this narration kind of hurts because it kind of states out this is what happens, this is the theme,
Yeah, the narration part. Yeah.
This connects it, and sometimes it doesn't really make sense. And now I'm trying to think like, does it really make sense? Does it really connect? Like, is the reason why the mother's doing this is because of one thing, and the treating her daughter in this way. That doesn't really relate make sense to me. And then the daughter being acting out or because of one way, there's this miscommunication here. And I don't think sometimes the mother's how the mother treats their daughter is being justified by their past, or at least the way you raise a child is different. But I just don't know if that it translated well of how this story relates. Like, oh, the mother this happened to the mother treats the daughter this way, and the daughter acts out. It just sometimes it just doesn't flow well. I don't think it just doesn't make sense to me. But again, taken individually, I think they've worked well. Putting them together, I just think it just kind of not doesn't. There's no like very the flow is kind of choppy there. And then I think that this movie he probably could have reduced the story, but again, this is about the Mahjong and Joy Luck Club based on the book, so I can see why they wanted to push everything into a 2-hour movie.
It's based on a book, that's fair. An adaptation, basically.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, sometimes it might be more beneficial if they could have focus on one or fewer relationships. But yeah, within this movie, there's also a few aspects where I think it was just a bit weird how the relationships happened, or not happened. It's just how they resolve, right? A lot of the reconciliations happen very, very quickly. It doesn't feel as earned, and probably because we don't spend as much time, or we just see things happen very quickly, and the resolutions are also very, very quick. So it doesn't feel as satisfying, right? As emotional. I would have to say I do like the ending story when the father and the daughter connecting. We get to finally hear, because I think it was just a mystery to us, like why did the mother Suyen abandon her two twins, and we kind of find it, and it's it's a very tragic reason why, right? But I think that drama we kind of understand. We kind of have this touching moment, right, where we June kind of finally understands what happens, and maybe finally understands the perspective of her mother. So I really enjoyed that part. So again, this movie I feel like maybe would lend itself better as a mini series, right? Like
like TV, like shows,
right? Exactly, a TV show, a mini series, right? Where we get to go into each mother and daughter relationship, and then relate it back to June going to China and finding her sisters, right? But they crammed it into one movie, which the movie itself is coherent enough that I at least for me, I was able to follow along in each story path, but it does get a bit, again, the themes get a bit disjointed to understand, and I think they could have developed it more. So
agreed. Cool. Well, we're gonna do our final ratings.
Yeah.
I think I'd give this film gosh. Yeah, I'm gonna give this film a 5.
A 5. Okay.
I thought it was very average. I know it's significant, like, and I think if you are, I don't know, you come from an immigrant family and they're very strict, and you watch it, you'll probably relate. But even with that relatability for me, there were too many moments where I felt like it was confusing how the story was told. The narration, right? The transitions, the over dramatization of certain parts. Why the decision making for some of the characters? Like, what's going on? Like, why is that deaf uncle teaching piano? Why did they get married even though it was like clearly that 50-50 was not fair, even though it was depicted as fair,
Mm-hmm.
or like, yeah, just um, why did they not? Why was there was certain scenes like why was there how, yeah, there was that supernatural scene where like she was sitting there and like saying that I died 60 years ago, like talking about her grandmother's circumstances, and there was like no reaction from the guy. Yeah, there's too much of this like too many parts where I was taken away. I was like, what is going on? Why is this happening? So it just did not keep me in this film. And then it was like, yeah, I wish there were more parts, more the short stories were more fleshed out. Like I said, if you like, if it was a TV show or a miniseries, that would have been probably a little bit of
Yeah.
like making me care more about these characters. So yeah, I'd say very average. So 5.
5. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. I would say I think I give this film like a 7. Um,
Oh my gosh, this is the first time in a while since we were off by more than one
yeah, I
on a
mean,
film.
personally, yeah, I
Yeah.
had a lot of problems with how I think, yeah, I said before, stitching the themes, but I think each individual
Yeah.
story really called out to, like, I enjoyed each individual story, right? I just didn't like how it was stitched together, and I think that was the main problem, right? That's where I would probably, either fix again mini series or whatnot, or just how quickly each resolve, maybe doing it later in the movie. But I enjoyed each individual story. I was in the moment. Like for me, it never felt, maybe it was a 2 hour movie, but sometimes it felt long. But most of the time I was watching, I enjoy watching the stories, like what's happening, each mother's story, each daughter's story, and how they relate to each other. I had a few laughs here and there, especially I think Waverly and her relationship with her boyfriend. Right, I enjoyed seeing that. But I thought it was fairly at least each individual story is good. I just didn't like the way it was stitched together, and sometimes I think the final 2 relationships, right, with Lena and Rose, those 2 relationships maybe didn't make as much sense, or just why the conflict with with their current partners. But overall, I thought it was the stories themselves were entertaining, taken individually, but just I think it could have been better in terms of how it was put together for the movie. And I think
Yeah.
I would. I mean, there's obviously the cultural significance of it, right? So I think I would recommend it. Just say, oh yeah, this is an Asian American film that's done pretty well, based on the book. So I would say, would I recommend it? Probably, I would say, if you told me, oh, should I watch it? Like, yeah, I think it's a good story. It might be a little long, but everyone can appreciate it. Especially trying to understand the Asian American experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I could say the same. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to a general audience. I'd say maybe if you, like I said, if you come from an immigrant family and you have strict parents, you find you can definitely, I feel like you can relate to this film. Um, but other than that, convinced that the storytelling was good enough to warrant a 2 hour film.
Yeah.
And
Fair
I'm
enough.
sorry, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it wasn't bad.
Right.
It's like
Average.
5 is
Right.
average. It's
Yeah.
average, right? But I don't think it was good. So, just my opinion. I might get a lot of flack for it, but
Fair enough.
we're not experts. We're not like professionals by any means.
Yeah.
Just our humble opinion.
Indeed.
So, all right, cool. Well, that ends today's discussion. We will be back
Yeah.
next week
Mm-hmm.
with another episode, another film, which we will decide off stream, and we'll update the schedule and the website accordingly.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, with that, I hope you guys have a great day. If you watch this, whenever you watch this, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Peace.